Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass of Luna Station and watched Earth spin slowly below him. The blue and white planet looked peaceful from here, but Jake knew that peace was about to end. 3 days ago, a message had arrived. That changed everything for humanity. Admiral Lisa Carter walked back and forth behind him. Her boots made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. She kept looking at the holographic display that showed the alien message. The creature in the recording was tall and made of what looked like living crystal. It called itself Zephyr Prime and spoke for something called the Galactic Federation. Jake turned away from the window and looked at the message again. The alien's voice was cold and mechanical when it spoke. People of Earth, your planet has been selected to join the Galactic War against the Void Swarm. You will provide soldier ships and resources. Failure to comply will result in complete isolation from galactic civilization. Dr. Sam Rodriguez sat at a nearby table reading through data files. He was Earth's best expert on alien life, even though he had never seen a real alien before this. Weak. The Void Swarm has been destroying worlds for over 2,000 years, he said without looking up. They consume everything, planets, stars, entire solar systems. Nothing stops them. Lisa stopped pacing and put her hands on the table. How many worlds have they destroyed? She asked. Sam pulled up another file. The Federation says at least 300 civilizations are gone, maybe more. The swarm turns everything into more ships for their fleet. They grow stronger with each victory. Jake felt sick thinking about it. 300 entire civilizations wiped out. Billions or maybe trillions of people dead. And the Federation wants us to fight these things, he said. They don't want us to fight them, Lisa corrected. They want us to die fighting them. Look at these battle reports. Every species that joins the Federation gets sent to the front lines. Most of their soldiers never come home. The door to the conference room opened and President Maria Gonzalez walked in. She looked tired. Jake knew she had been in meetings with world leaders for the past 3 days trying to decide what humanity should do. Behind her came General Andrew Johnson and Dr. Patricia Lee. We've made our decision, Maria said as she sat down. Earth will not join this war. The room went quiet. Jake could hear the hum of the station's life support systems. Outside the window, Earth continued its slow rotation as if nothing had changed. Ma'am, are you sure about this? Andrew asked. The Federation made it clear what happens if we refuse, Maria nodded. They cut off all trade. No more alien technology. No access to their knowledge. We become isolated from the rest of the galaxy. She paused and looked around the room. But we keep our people alive. Lisa leaned forward. The Federation has been fighting this war for 2,000 years and they're still losing. They want fresh soldiers to throw at an enemy they can't defeat. How many human lives are worth their approval? Dr. Lee spoke up from where she stood. Near the wall. I've been studying their technology reports. The Federation's weapons and ships follow very specific patterns. They all use the same energy sources, the same shield designs, the same tactical approaches. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means they've been fighting the same war the same way for centuries. They never change, never adapt. They just keep sending more soldiers to die using the same failed strategies. Sam looked up from his files. The Void Swarm has been winning. Because they know exactly what to expect from Federation forces. Every battle follows the same pattern. Maria stood up and walked to the window. She looked down at Earth for a long moment. My grandfather fought in World War II. He used to tell me that the worst thing about war isn't dying for your country. It's dying for someone else's mistakes. Jake joined her at the window. The Federation won't like our answer. No, they won't, Maria agreed. But humanity has something they don't understand. We know when to say no. The reply to the Federation was sent within the hour. President Gonzalez read it herself over the communication channel. The people of Earth appreciate the Federation's offer, but we must decline. We will not participate in this conflict. We wish you success in your endeavors, but Earth chooses a different path. The response came back faster than anyone expected. Zephyr Prime's image appeared on the screen again. This time the alien looked angry. Your refusal is noted. All Federation vessels will withdraw from your system immediately. All trade agreements are terminated. All technology exchanges are ended. Earth is now considered a non-aligned world with no Federation protection or benefits. Jake watched through the station's telescopes as alien ships began leaving the solar system. Huge vessels that had been orbiting Earth and Mars for the past year were powering up their engines and heading for deep space. Within 6 hours, the last Federation ship was gone. Well, that's that, Lisa said as the final ship disappeared. We're on our own now. But Jake noticed she didn't sound worried. In fact, she was smiling. Admiral, why do you look happy about this? He asked. Lisa walked back to the conference table and pulled up a new set of files. These weren't Federation reports or alien technology readouts. These were human files marked with Earth Defense Force logos. Because, Jake, we've been preparing for this day for a lot longer than they think. The files showed construction projects scattered throughout the solar system. Hidden bases beyond Pluto, secret shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapon testing facilities on the far side of the moon. All of it built while the Federation thought humanity was just another primitive species grateful for their attention. How long have we been building all this? Sam asked in amazement. Since the day we first made contact with the Federation, Andrew answered. We learned early that they only respect strength. But we also learned that showing your strength too early can make you a target. Dr. Lee pulled up technical specifications for ships and weapons Jake had never seen before. Human technology developed along completely different lines than Federation standard. We use different materials, different energy sources, different weapons. The best part, Lisa added, is that all of this is invisible to their sensors. They look for specific energy signatures and shield frequencies. Our equipment doesn't match any of their patterns. Jake stared at the secret files in wonder. Humanity had been playing a much deeper game than he realized. So we let them think we're weak and helpless. Better to be underestimated than to be seen as a threat too early, Maria said. The Federation has enough enemies already. They didn't need to worry about adding us to the list. The meeting broke up an hour later, but Jake stayed behind to look through more of the secret files. Earth had not been idle during its contact with the Federation. While alien diplomats thought they were dealing with a backward species, humanity had been building a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Outside the window, Earth continued spinning peacefully in the void. But Jake now knew the truth. Humanity was ready for war. They just weren't ready to fight someone else's war on someone else's terms. The Federation would learn soon enough that there was a big difference between the two. Colonel Ben Parker floated in zero gravity as he watched the construction crews work on the new sensor array. The station was so far beyond Pluto that the sun looked like just another star in the black sky. No Federation ship had ever come this far out into human space, and that was exactly the point. How many more days until we're online? Ben asked the chief engineer through his helmet. Radio. Kate Williams looked up from where she was welding a power coupling to the main dish. Sparks from her torch drifted away into space like tiny fireworks. 3 days if we don't run into any more problems. This thing will be able to see ships coming from 50 light years away. Ben nodded and pushed himself along the station's outer hull to check the weapon mounts. Even this far from Earth, the humans were not taking any chances. The sensor station had enough firepower to destroy a small fleet if anyone came looking for it. Back on Earth, Kate's twin sister Amy Williams was working in a completely different environment. The underground laboratory stretched for miles beneath the Colorado mountains. Hundreds of scientists and engineers worked at stations that the Federation had no idea existed. Amy pulled up a hologram showing the differences between human and alien technology. Their energy weapons work by exciting particles in a focused beam, she explained to the team of physicists gathered around her. But our kinetic weapons just throw big chunks of metal really fast. Dr. Helen Scott leaned forward to get a better look at the display. How fast are we talking about? Fast enough that a piece of tungsten the size of a baseball can punch through their strongest shields like they're made of paper, Amy replied with a smile. They've never seen anything like it. The Federation had been fighting the same war for so long that they had forgotten there were other ways to destroy things. Energy shields stopped energy weapons, but they did nothing against solid objects moving at high speed. Chemical explosives were considered primitive by galactic standards, but they still made very big holes in enemy ships. Commander Ryan Davis was testing humanity's new approach to space combat in the asteroid belt. His ship looked nothing like the sleek Federation vessels with their smooth curves and glowing engines. The human ship was angular and rough, with armor plating bolted on wherever it would fit. Weapons test number 47, Ryan said into his radio. Target is a nickel-iron asteroid about 2 kilometers across. The ship's main gun was a simple rail gun that used magnetic fields to throw metal slugs at incredible speeds. When Ryan pulled the trigger, the asteroid simply disappeared in a cloud of dust and debris. No energy beams, no exotic particles. Just a big chunk of metal hitting another chunk of metal very hard. "I love this job," Ryan said to his crew as they watched. The debris scatter. On Mars, Dr. Patricia Lee was working with a team of scientists to understand Federation technology from a completely different angle. Instead of trying to copy alien designs, they were looking for weaknesses and blind spots. Every Federation ship uses the same basic sensor package, Patricia explained as she pointed to technical drawings on the wall. They look for energy signatures that match their own technology: fusion reactors, plasma weapons, ion drives. Her assistant, Dr. Corinne Brown, nodded as she took notes. "But our ships use chemical rockets and nuclear reactors." "Exactly. To their sensors, we look like cosmic background noise. They literally cannot see us coming until we're right on top of them." The more humanity studied Federation technology, the more obvious it became that the aliens had stopped innovating centuries ago. They had found designs that worked and never bothered to improve them. Every ship in their fleet was basically the same, with minor variations. General Andrew Johnson coordinated the massive construction effort from his command center deep beneath the Pentagon. Wall-sized displays showed the progress of dozens of secret projects scattered throughout the solar system. Shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapons factories on the moons of Jupiter, training bases on Mars. "Status report," Andrew said to his aide. "Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Clark." Nancy pulled up a summary display. "Shipyard 7 has completed another 12 destroyers. The missile production facility on Europa is ahead of schedule. And the Marine Training Base reports that the 1st Battalion is ready for combat operations." Andrew smiled as he looked at the numbers. In just 2 years, humanity had built a military force that would have impressed even the Federation. The difference was that Earth's military was designed to fight in ways the aliens had never seen before. Captain Tony Brown was running patrol missions near Jupiter when he received new orders. His ship was one of the first to be equipped with the new stealth systems that made human vessels invisible to Federation sensors. "Command, this is Patrol 6, Tony said into his radio. "We've detected 3 Federation scout ships approaching the outer system." The response came back immediately from Earth Defense Command. "Do not engage, observe and report. Let them think we're still defenseless." Tony watched through his ship's telescopes as the alien vessels moved through the Jupiter system. They were scanning asteroids and checking the positions of the major moons, but they completely missed the human shipyard hidden behind Europa. Their sensors showed nothing unusual. "Looks like the stealth systems work perfectly," Tony reported. "They're close enough to shake hands and they still can't see us." The Federation ships spent 3 days in the outer solar system before returning to wherever they had come from. They never detected the massive military buildup that was happening right under their noses. Lieutenant Don Foster was working with a team of programmers to develop new combat software for the human fleet, unlike Federation ships that relied on artificial intelligence to make tactical decisions. Human vessels were designed to be controlled by living pilots. "The aliens have been using the same combat programs for hundreds of years," Don explained to his team. "Their ships react to threats in predictable ways, but humans are chaotic. We make decisions that don't follow logical patterns." His colleague, Lieutenant Sarah Kim nodded as she worked on flight control systems. So when their computers try to predict what we'll do next, they'll be wrong every time. Exactly. Artificial intelligence is very good at solving problems it has seen before, but it's terrible at dealing with completely new situations. The secret preparations continued for months while the Federation focused on their war against the Void Swarm. Earth received occasional reports about major battles being fought dozens of light years away, but the conflict seemed very distant and unimportant. Commander Susan Kelly was overseeing the installation of hidden weapons platforms throughout the inner solar system. The platforms looked like ordinary asteroids or space debris, but each one contained enough firepower to destroy a Federation cruiser. How many platforms are active now? Susan asked her operations officer. Captain Nick Turner checked his status. Board, 215 platforms online and ready. Another 50 will be completed within the week. Earth was transforming itself into the most heavily defended system in the galaxy while maintaining the appearance of a helpless backwater world. Every human ship could disappear at a moment's notice. Every weapon was hidden until needed. Every soldier was trained to fight in ways the aliens had never encountered. The Federation thought they had written off an irrelevant species when they cut ties with Earth. They had no idea. They had just given humanity exactly what it needed to prepare for the war that was coming. Captain Tony Brown was drinking coffee in his ship's small kitchen when every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. He dropped his cup and ran to the command chair as his crew rushed to their stations. The main display showed something that made his blood run cold. "Sir, we have massive contacts emerging from hyperspace near Jupiter," reported Lieutenant Dan Foster from the sensor station. "I count over 300 vessels, and the number is still climbing." Tony stared at the screen in disbelief. The ships were huge and dark with organic curves that looked more grown than built. They pulsed with strange energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. These were not Federation vessels. "Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command," Tony ordered. "Priority Alpha." The communication channel crackled to life within seconds. "Patrol 7, this is Admiral Carter." "What's your status?" "Ma'am, we have a problem. Multiple hostile contacts just jumped into the Jupiter system. These aren't Federation ships." "They look like something alive?" There was a pause before Lisa's voice came back. "Can you get visual confirmation?" Tony switched his ship's main telescope to maximum magnification and focused on the nearest enemy vessel. What he saw made him sick to his stomach. The ship's hull was covered with what looked like veins and arteries. Smaller craft were being born from openings along its sides like some kind of horrible space pregnancy. "Admiral, these things are organic? They're literally alive?" "And they're heading straight for Earth." The Void Swarm had arrived 6 months ahead of schedule. Every Federation prediction had been wrong. The enemy had somehow found a way to jump across 40 light-years in a single bound by consuming an entire star for fuel. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the primary command center watching tactical displays that showed the full scope of the invasion. Over 500 enemy vessels had materialized in the outer solar system, and more were arriving every few minutes. "How did they get here so fast?" asked General Andrew Johnson as he joined her at the main display. Dr. Sam Rodriguez pulled up energy readings from the long-range sensors. "They consumed a red giant star about 40 light-years from here. Used the entire stellar mass as fuel for some kind of super jump drive. It's beyond anything the Federation thought possible." Lisa studied the enemy formation as it began moving toward the inner system. The Void Swarm ships were arranged in a pattern that made no tactical sense by human standards, but she knew they had destroyed hundreds of worlds using these same formations. "What's our status on the defense platforms?" she asked. Commander Susan Kelly checked her board. "All platforms are online and ready. The enemy doesn't know they exist. To their sensors, we look completely defenseless." Within hours of the Void Swarm's arrival, a Federation message appeared on all Earth communication channels. Ambassador Zephyr Prime looked even more crystalline and cold than usual as he delivered what sounded like a prepared statement. "People of Earth, the Void Swarm has reached your system. The Federation deeply regrets that we cannot provide assistance to worlds that refuse to join our alliance. You face this threat alone. We wish you good fortune in your final hours. President. Maria Gonzalez watched the message from her bunker beneath Geneva. How thoughtful of them to say goodbye, she said with bitter sarcasm. I'm sure they'll be very sad when we're all dead. But the Federation had made a critical mistake. They assumed humanity would react like every other species they had encountered. Panic, desperate calls for help, chaotic evacuation attempts. The slow, inevitable collapse that preceded total destruction. Instead, Earth went silent. The void swarm detected no emergency broadcasts, no ships fleeing the system, no desperate military preparations. The planet below seemed to have simply accepted its fate without resistance. This was exactly what the aliens expected from a primitive, isolated world. Lieutenant Commander Amy Collins monitored the enemy fleet from her position on Mars base. They're not even scanning for defenses, she reported to Earth Command. They think we're completely helpless. The Void Swarm had perfected their invasion technique over 2,000 years of conquest. Arrive in overwhelming force. Absorb whatever pitiful resistance the locals could manage. Strip the system clean of all useful materials. Move on to the next target. It had worked against 93 different civilizations. Dr. Patricia Lee watched from the science station as the enemy fleet began its final approach to Earth. Look at their formation. They're bunched together like they're expecting no opposition at all. Admiral Carter smiled grimly as she studied the tactical display. The Void Swarm was making every mistake possible. They were overconfident, predictable, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. All stations, this is Admiral Carter, she announced over the command frequency. The enemy has chosen to pick a fight with the wrong species. Today they learn why Earth refused to join someone else's war. Captain Nick Turner received the standby order at his position near one of the hidden weapon platforms. Around him, dozens of other commanders were getting similar messages. The trap was set, and the enemy was walking right into it. Remember, people, came Lisa's voice over the tactical net. These things have been destroying civilizations for 2,000 years. They've never lost a battle. They think they know everything about warfare. She paused and looked around the command center at the men and women who would decide humanity's fate. They're about to discover that humans don't fight wars the way everyone else does. The Void Swarm continued its approach with arrogant confidence. Their organic sensors detected a single inhabited world with primitive technology and no orbital defenses. Standard procedure called for a simple, overwhelming assault followed by systematic harvesting of all useful resources. Commander Ryan Davis powered up his ship's engines from where he waited behind Earth's moon. Around him, the hidden human fleet prepared for battle. Ships that looked crude and primitive compared to Federation designs but carried weapons the galaxy had never seen before. All units maintain radio silence, came the order from Earth Command. Let them get close. We want them nice and comfortable. The lead elements of the Void Swarm entered Earth's inner solar system without encountering any resistance. Their advanced scouts reported that the third planet showed signs of recent industrial activity but appeared to be completely undefended. Dr. Michelle Adams watched from her laboratory as the enemy fleet deployed in their standard attack formation. They're following exactly the same pattern they used against the Centauri colonies, she reported. No variation at all. The Void Swarm had grown complacent after centuries of easy victories. They had forgotten that some species might choose to fight back in unexpected ways. They had never encountered an enemy that preferred to be underestimated. The alien fleet settled into orbital positions around Earth like predators surrounding wounded prey. Their massive hive ships began extending harvesting appendages toward the planet's surface. Smaller vessels moved to secure the asteroid belt and outer moons. Everything was proceeding according to their ancient plan. Soon, this system would be stripped clean and converted into fuel for their next conquest. The organic computers that controlled their fleet calculated that total harvesting would be complete within 72 hours. They had no idea that humanity was about to teach them a lesson about the difference between conquest and survival. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in Earth Defense Command watching the tactical display as hundreds of Void Swarm ships moved into their final attack positions. The aliens had positioned themselves exactly where human battle planners had hoped they would, bunched together in predictable formations with no room to maneuver. "All stations, this is command," Lisa said into her headset. "Execute Operation Sledgehammer. Show these things what humans do to uninvited guests." Commander Susan Kelly pressed the firing button at her weapons control station. Across the solar system, 200 hidden platforms that had looked like asteroids and space debris suddenly came alive. Rail guns that had been disguised as mining equipment opened fire in perfect coordination. The first salvo caught the Void Swarm completely by surprise. Tungsten slugs traveling at 20% of light speed punched through alien hulls like they were made of wet paper. The organic armor that had protected the swarm for centuries was useless against simple chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds. Captain Tony Brown watched from his patrol ship as 3 massive hive ships simply exploded. One moment they were there, and the next they were clouds of debris and glowing gas. "Command, this is Patrol 7. Direct hits on targets Alpha 2 through Alpha 4. They're completely destroyed." But the hidden platforms were just the beginning. Captain Nick Turner triggered the second wave from his position behind the moon. The human fleet emerged from hiding like ghosts materializing in space. Ships that looked primitive and crude compared to Federation designs but moved with deadly purpose. "All ships commence firing," Nick ordered over the fleet frequency. "Hit them with everything we have." Nuclear warheads that the Federation considered hopelessly outdated slammed into Void Swarm vessels. The aliens had never encountered fission weapons before. Their organic systems had no defense against the massive electromagnetic pulses that fried their control networks and left their ships drifting helplessly. Lieutenant Commander Amy Collins coordinated the missile barrage from her command ship near Mars. "Target the big ones first," she ordered her weapons officer. "Those hive ships are their command vessels." The Void Swarm tried to respond, but their formations were in chaos. Ships that had been designed to work together in precise patterns found themselves scattered and confused. Their organic computers had never encountered an enemy that used kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Dr. Patricia Lee watched from the science station as human fighters swarmed around a disabled hive ship. "They're trying to adapt their shields," she reported. "But every time they adjust for one weapon type, we hit them with something completely different." The Void Swarm had evolved their defenses to counter energy weapons and particle beams. Their living hull could absorb plasma fire and deflect laser attacks. But they had no answer for simple chemical explosives that tore through their organic superstructure like tissue paper. Commander Ryan Davis led his squadron in a ramming attack against one of the larger enemy vessels. His ship was loaded with antimatter charges and had been designed for exactly this kind of suicide mission. "This is for every world you destroyed," he said as he aimed his ship at the alien's engine cluster. The explosion lit up space for thousands of kilometers. When the light faded, the enemy ship was broken in half and drifting dead in space. Ryan's sacrifice had taken out one of their most powerful vessels. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that broke every rule of civilized warfare. Human ships used tactics that no sane species would attempt. Kamikaze attacks, ramming maneuvers, boarding parties armed with chemical explosives and kinetic weapons. Captain Jake Morrison led the first boarding assault against a crippled hive ship. His Marines wore simple pressure suits and carried weapons that looked primitive compared to Federation equipment. But they worked. "Remember, people, these things have never fought humans before," Jake told his troops as their boarding pods punched through the alien hull. "They don't know what we're capable of." The Void Swarm warriors inside the ship were 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and natural armor plating. They had evolved to be perfect killing machines. But they had never faced humans in close combat. Sergeant Bill Hayes led his squad through the organic corridors of the enemy ship. The walls pulsed with veins and arteries like the inside of some giant creature. "Plant the charges here and here," he ordered his demolition expert. "We're going to blow this thing from the inside out." The alien warriors attacked with savage fury, but they were used to fighting other species that relied on energy weapons and advanced technology. Humans fought with knives and clubs and chemical explosives. They used tactics that seemed insane but worked. Private Jennifer Lopez found herself face to face with a void swarm warrior in a narrow passage. The creature was twice her size, with claws that could slice through steel, but Jennifer had grown up in Detroit and knew how to fight dirty. She waited until it lunged, then triggered the claymore mine she had hidden behind her back. Dr. Michelle Adams monitored the boarding actions from her laboratory station. "The alien warriors are actually less effective in close combat than Federation soldiers," she reported with amazement. "All their evolution focused on space battles. They never developed proper hand-to-hand fighting techniques." The tide of battle shifted as the Void Swarm realized they were facing something they had never encountered before. For 2,000 years they had conquered species that fought according to galactic standards. Energy weapons, shield technology, predictable tactics. Humans ignored all of that and fought like barbarians with advanced technology. Lieutenant Dan Foster watched from his sensor station as another hive ship went dark. "Admiral, the enemy is trying to retreat. They're powering up their jump drives." Lisa Carter smiled grimly. "Not so fast. All ships execute containment protocol. Don't let a single one of them escape." Human ships that had been hidden throughout the solar system suddenly appeared around the fleeing aliens. The Void Swarm found themselves trapped in a sphere of enemies that they couldn't see coming until it was too late. "They've been winning for so long they forgot how to lose," observed Dr. Sam Rodriguez as he watched the battle unfold. "They have no plan for what to do when someone fights back effectively." The final phase of the battle was more like an execution than a fight. Void Swarm ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were systematically destroyed by weapons they didn't understand, using tactics they had never seen. Captain Alex Rivera watched from his command ship as the last enemy vessel went silent. "Command, this is Battle Group 7. All hostile contacts have been eliminated. Repeat, all hostiles are down." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in over 2,000 years, the Void Swarm had been completely defeated. Not driven off or temporarily stopped, but utterly destroyed. Admiral Carter looked around the command center at her exhausted but victorious crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we just did something the entire Galactic Federation couldn't accomplish in 2 millennia of warfare. We stopped the unstoppable." The battle had lasted less than 48 hours from start to finish. Humanity had faced the greatest threat in galactic history, and one using nothing but human ingenuity and the willingness to fight dirty when survival was at stake. Commander Alex Rivera floated in his pressure suit among the wreckage of what had once been the Void Swarm's flagship. Pieces of organic hull drifted past his helmet like strange alien snow. Just 2 days ago, this massive ship had been alive and terrifying. Now it was nothing but debris scattered across Earth's orbital space. "Command, this is Rivera," he said into his radio. "Final sweep is complete. No enemy survivors detected. The Void Swarm is finished." Admiral Lisa Carter received the report in Earth Defense Command, where she stood surrounded by displays showing the aftermath of humanity's victory. Debris fields marked the locations where hundreds of alien ships had died. Not a single enemy vessel had escaped. "Understood, Commander," Lisa replied. "Return to base for debriefing." The silence in the command center was broken by an incoming transmission alert. The Federation was calling, and they sounded desperate. Ambassador Zephyr Prime appeared on the main screen looking far less composed than usual. His crystalline features seemed to flicker with nervous energy. "Admiral Carter, we have received reports of massive energy signatures in your system," the alien said. "Our sensors detected what appeared to be a major battle. Please respond with your status." Lisa looked around at her staff and saw knowing smiles on every face. The Federation had spent months writing off Earth as doomed. Now they were panicking because their long-range sensors had picked up the explosions from the biggest space battle in galactic history. "Ambassador, we appreciate your concern," Lisa said with perfect politeness. "Earth is secure. The situation has been resolved." There was a long pause before Zephyr Prime responded. "Resolved how exactly?" "Our intelligence indicated that over 500 Void Swarm vessels had entered your system." "That's correct," Lisa confirmed. 537 enemy ships. To be precise, they're all destroyed. The alien ambassador stared at her through the screen like she had just claimed the moon was made of cheese. "Admiral, that's impossible. The Void Swarm cannot be stopped by conventional means. They have been consuming civilizations for over 2,000 years. President Maria Gonzalez chose that moment to enter the command center. She looked tired but satisfied as she joined Lisa at the communication station. "Ambassador, this is President Gonzalez. Perhaps we should arrange a meeting to discuss recent events." The response came faster than anyone expected. Within 6 hours, a full Federation diplomatic convoy arrived in the Sol system. Ships that had fled in panic just months ago now returned loaded with officials eager to talk. Ambassador Zephyr Prime brought half the Galactic Council with him. The meeting took place aboard the wreckage of the Void Swarm flagship. President Gonzalez had insisted on that location to make a point. They gathered in what had once been the alien command center, surrounded by the twisted remains of organic control systems. "This is remarkable," said Counselor Vex 12 as he examined a piece of destroyed alien technology. "We have been fighting these creatures for millennia and never inflicted damage like this." Dr. Sam Rodriguez led a group of Federation scientists through the wreckage. "The key was understanding that they had adapted to counter your weapons and tactics," he explained. "But they had never encountered human approaches to warfare." Zephyr Prime studied a section of hull that had been blown apart by human explosives. "You used chemical reactions to destroy their ships?" he said in amazement. "We abandoned such primitive methods centuries ago." "That's exactly why it worked," replied Dr. Patricia Lee. "You've been fighting the same war the same way for so long that both sides forgot there were other options." Admiral Carter showed the Federation officials recordings of the battle. They watched in fascination as human ships used ramming attacks and suicide runs that no civilized species would attempt. The aliens seemed horrified and impressed at the same time. "Your warriors deliberately destroyed themselves to damage enemy vessels," observed Counselor Jeune 9. "This level of sacrifice is unprecedented." "We call it doing whatever it takes to win," said General Andrew Johnson. "Something the Federation seems to have forgotten." But the most shocking revelation came when Dr. Michelle Adams presented her analysis of captured Void Swarm warriors. The aliens had dissected several of the creatures and discovered something that stunned the Federation representatives. "They're actually weaker than most galactic species in direct combat," Michelle explained. "All their evolution focused on space warfare. They never developed effective close-quarters fighting abilities. The Federation had been terrified of an enemy that humans had beaten in hand-to-hand combat using knives and chemical explosives. 2,000 years of fear based on incomplete information and rigid thinking. Captain Jake Morrison joined the meeting, fresh from leading boarding parties against enemy ships. His armor was still scorched from fighting inside alien vessels. "The problem isn't that these things were unbeatable," he told the assembled diplomats. "The problem is that nobody ever tried to beat them properly." The political implications became clear quickly. Other civilizations that had been hiding from the Void Swarm began reaching out to Earth. Species that the Federation had written off as extinct emerged from deep space, where they had been waiting for someone to end the threat. Dr. Karen Brown worked with newly arrived alien scientists to share the tactical innovations that had made victory possible. "The Federation fought the last war," she explained to a gathering of military experts from 12 different worlds. "We fought the war we needed to win." Within weeks, Earth found itself at the center of a new galactic alliance. Worlds that had refused to join the Federation's hopeless war effort now wanted to learn from humanity's example. The species that had been dismissed as primitive became teachers for civilizations thousands of years older, Captain Nick Turner was promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's first deep space exploration fleet. Ships built with human engineering but enhanced with willing alien technology began patrolling sectors the Federation had abandoned as lost causes. "The galaxy is bigger than we thought," Nick told his crew as they prepared for their first mission beyond Sol. "And there are a lot of people out there who could use a different approach to their problems." Commander Susan Kelly found herself training alien military officers in human combat techniques. Warriors from species that had been fighting defensive wars for centuries learned about offensive tactics and unconventional weapons. "Stop thinking like victims," she told a class of Federation naval officers. "Start thinking like humans. When something tries to destroy you, don't just resist it. Destroy it right back." The Void Swarm was gone, but their defeat had revealed something more important than any single victory. The galaxy had been trapped in old patterns of thinking for so long that they had forgotten how to solve problems creatively. Captain Tony Brown led the first joint human-alien patrol into what had been Void Swarm territory. They found dozens of worlds that were beginning to recover from centuries of fear. Civilizations that had been in hiding were emerging to rebuild. "Earth Command, this is Deep Patrol 1, Tony reported as they entered a system where 3 different species were working together to restore a damaged planet. "The galaxy is healing faster than we expected." President Gonzalez addressed the reformed Galactic Council from her office in Geneva. Behind her through the window, Earth turned peacefully. In space, no longer an isolated world but the center of a new way of thinking about galactic civilization. "Earth refused to join your war because we knew there had to be a better way," she told the assembled representatives. "Sometimes the best way to end the conflict is to fight it like nobody else would." The galaxy would never underestimate humanity. Again, more importantly, humanity had taught the galaxy that there was always another way to solve any problem, if you were willing to think differently about it.